Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's Inworld review. Where it is, yes, it is the 9th of July, 2017, halfway through the year and more already, as I keep saying. Where did it go? Where did it go? It's got a bit of conference season too. Maybe we're going to talk about that. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, this is where we chat about the worlds of social spaces online, particularly OpenSim and the hypergrid, which are a series of interconnected grids, hundreds of them all over the world. And you can jump between them and do amazing things in them. My name is Mal Burns, and I'm your kind of host. My co-host, of sorts, who's also multitasking. Over on my right-hand side is James Outloud. So welcome, James.
Oh, thanks, Mal. It's great to be here. Have a great time.
We will do. And I've got two guests with us today. Both of it have been on here before, but one will be very familiar to you. It's none other than Thirza Ember, she of Hypergrid Safari and just about everything else going, really. So, hello, Thirza.
Hey, Mal. Hello, everybody.
And to my right, we haven't had her on for a while, but a wonderful creator, actually. Her name is Karima Hoisan.
Hi.
Welcome, Karima. Yes.
Thank you, Mel. It's really nice to be here. This is my first time actually on the hyper and this program because you invited me and the Second Life one about a year ago. So I'm very very pleased to be invited here today.
Absolutely great. I knew you'd been on before, but I didn't realize. It seems like so long since we did any shows from Second Life. But yes, of course. So like many of us, you started in Second Life and gradually ended up here on OpenSim.
Very true. Very true. Most of my building and creativity is right here in OpenSim for sure.
Yeah. In fact, I remember both Thurza and I came, and James, I think, in fact, came and filmed you as part of the OSCC's sort of Sunday Safari special, didn't we?
That's right. We were, on the boats.
Yeah,
all my boats.
You had the boats.
Right.
So the tide. What was it? The tide went out, or did the boats go out? I forget which.
The boats went out. The boats went out.
The boats
left everybody. That's right.
That's it. Our film ended with the boats going out. I think that was it. That
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Very
Thank you so
beautiful
much.
build indeed. Lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all built from a poem, just an idea that's so wonderful because in hypergrid especially, you actually are capable of putting, visually a poem and constructing it and making it, inviting people to come in and walk through your poem and be part of it. It's just it's the best, that you can do that.
But while I was fiddling around downstairs here, I mean, I've recently launched a grid of my own offline, on my own computer to do the fiddling in. I keep the public out of the way. But, messing around here and stuff, and it was too big a job. I've rather abandoned it, whole storytelling, literary kind of thing where people would discover chapters. Instead of getting gifts as they were hunted around, they would find chapters and put a great, self-contained stories and put them together. And a lot of what I was doing, fiddling, was coming out of inventing in my mind a chapter of the story that it was going to describe. So like your poems, I guess I had the words there, and then the visual environment was being constructed to fit the words. Or the narrative, to put it more correctly. So yeah, I certainly love those things you do with the airplane lady, I call her.
Natasha Rand, our pilot. That's right, in the skies, Natasha. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've done a lot of machinima and things, which literally has been the machinimas for the vision, and then your voice and the poetry over the top, and they're just nice. They bring out a different dimension, you can either have a visual picture like a film or storytelling, but the idea is just a bit of sound and the poetry over it. It makes it a complete thing in itself, as it were, with most.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, what I'm gonna dive into first is like current events. Especially, I believe Thirza may have to leave after about an hour, so I'm going to make sure I get mileage out of her first. I'll try Thirza. Yeah.
In the nicest possible way.
Yes, absolutely. What we were both yesterday at, I'm not sure how we pronounce it, Derios grid,
Yes.
which is the German grids, but they were having a summer fest, I guess, summer fest or summer events, I think. And there was a sort of opening ball and there was a little bit of dancing going on and stuff like that. Nothing spectacular to see, though. I think we may have some clips running of that. But the nice thing about it was that around the area where they're dancing, and this is going on for about a month, there were lots of sort of buildings. I was going to call them booths, but most of them were actually little shacks all of their own. And demonstrating in these shacks were a lot of other German-based grids. So it wasn't shacks of vendors from that particular grid. It was I've lost count. I'm going to ask Thirza because there are actually. We were actually talking yesterday, and we were actually wondering if out of the European grids, Germany probably has the biggest number of grids, because what they were doing is all the German grids were coming together at Dieros to celebrate 4 weeks of the summer event. So it's going to be going on for a while. The only problem we found was that we can never seem to find any German event people who speak English.
Yeah, and of course we don't speak German, so we're also to blame.
Yeah, that's right.
Knowledge of German.
Right.
Well,
But actually, it was very neat because I asked a few questions about it to Alira, who's the one who organized the event together with Akira. Akira Sonoda is the tech person there, and who made sure the grids are all working right. But there's actually 13 grids involved in this event, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because many times, even the English language events, you don't get 13 grids all involved. So I thought that was super. And most of the people started out obviously in Second Life, then they moved to OS Grid, and that's why it's called Der Reos, because they're Der for Deutsche, for German, Re for residence, and the OS is for OpenSim. So there was like a community in Osgrid that was German, and that's where the name came from. And then, of course, many of them moved to Metropolis when Metropolis started. And then after that, as people's technology developed and different relationships developed and so forth, everybody started making their own smaller grids. Derios, for example, that's a grid that is just a bunch of friends. You can't join. It's not a public grid that you can just join if you don't already know the group.
Yeah.
And you can't attach a sim like you could, for example, in Metropolis. So, but it's incredibly robust. They're using Freakytech's Ariba, which seems to be working very well for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Freaky's region and somewhere else using Ariba, and it does seem to be a very stable variant of OpenSim. So, yeah. Very good. Now, one thing I noticed while you were there is, as you said, you were able to communicate with some people. You were actually asking a few questions, weren't you? And like,
yes,
do they prefer having lots of mini grids in Germany and then getting together for an event like this? And people were saying yes, yes, yes. And then somebody said, "Oh, I don't know. I think I prefer a bigger grid." Obviously, differing opinions there, but you did get the feeling that they were all coming together for this German thing, and it was a multi-grid exercise. So
well, that's the fun of it, isn't it? You come for the party, and when you're done, you go home, and you don't have to put up with everybody. You just go back to your own house, have everything your own way, and that's just fun. And there's so many great. I mean, there are 13 are participating, but I could probably tell you that at least another 20, 30 other grids out there that are not participating for one reason or another. I mean, there's just so many of them. And we're not talking about a mini grid, just one region. We're talking about, a group of people multiple regions. They're incredibly enthusiastic about OpenSim, which is fun because they've got a lot of creativity going on too.
Did you get, I mean, it's a bit of a specific question, but I think I remember you asking it. Did you get any feeling as to how come Germany's presence on the hypergrid in one form or another is so big?
Well, I asked them if it was because it rains a lot in Germany, and
Yeah.
a lot of people seem to think that might be true. I think they're just very technology minded, and they have the internet that will do it. I think if your internet connection is good, then even all the pitfalls that we experience in OpenSim, you can overcome it because at least you can get online. And whereas in other parts of Europe, I think, and even in Britain, I think there's plenty of parts of the British Isles that still have, the internet is spotty connections, and you just get tired. I mean, after all, we're doing this for fun, and when it stops being fun, most people just stop doing it. So I think a lot of it is to do with that. And there's just so many friends. I mean, it's so fun to go to a German event, because even if you don't speak the language, they all know each other, and they've known each other for 10 years. I'm sure you remember back in the day when in 2006, 2007, there was already a huge German presence in Second Life. And a lot of those people, of course, are now in OpenSim.
Yeah, I mean, back in the region in Second Life, I used to live and have the Meta Chilbo. We had quite a few German people there, even though it was modelled on like small town America. It's like funny, And of course, Dieter, who was on this show a few weeks ago, he's working on the Cyber Lounge Web Worlds thing that Selby Evans is using and stuff. He's German, and he was telling us about in real life. He's basically, the way I gathered it, he's putting the whole German education system. Every school in Germany seems to be going to be linked up in virtual schools.
Fun.
So every school in Germany has its own virtual world, and the whole infrastructure can be actually built that way. So I mean, it certainly sounds like as a country that technology is giving people plenty of opportunities.
And they're very outgoing too, because we have Spike Soul here in the audience with us, and Spike is like a hypergrid heroine. She's absolutely fabulous. If you think about her grid there, Soliton, with all the hubs, all the different portals that lead to different worlds, and it's all themed so that you can, if you're looking for freebies, they're all together. And if you're looking for art, if you're looking for social lounges, that's fantastic. I remember that was one of the first things I saw in OpenSim. Wow, we really are all connected. And so the work of Spike is just, it's phenomenal. It's done a really wonderful job. And in fact, when I asked everybody, my last question yesterday was, who's the most beautiful avatar? They all said Spike.
Oh, very good.
I think they like her in and outside. She's a wonderful person.
Okay, well, hats off to Spike. And actually, I've got a feeling James has a camera angle on her at some point. So.
I did want to mention, if it's okay, the other events that are going to happen in this summer party, because Alira gave me a list.
Wonderful.
So on the 12th of July, which is on this coming Wednesday, there'll be this Samira's party, because Samira Samtanko has a party every week. She's been doing it from way before the safari started. It's in the same time zone as the safari happened. And in fact, a couple of times we've been to the party. I don't know if you remember when we did the Back to the Future event, which happened, we celebrated the day when Marty McFly goes back to the future, which is 2015. So anyway, Samira's having an event on the 12th of July. Then on the Thursday, which is the day after, there's a Western party, always in the festival area again. And then on Saturday, Wollam Wobbit will be playing.
Oh,
and then,
that's great.
Yeah, so that'll be good. That's at 9 p.m. European time. And then the following Wednesday again, there's another party with Samira. Then there's some comedy on Saturday, the 22nd of July from 8 o'clock, European time. So that should be fun. It's called, I'm going to mess this up, Hyperpunkt Comedy, Decaffeinated and Out of Control. So that should be fun. And then Prince, who's a DJ, he's going to be playing that's on Saturday too. And there'll be the results of the competition, because there's a competition for all those little houses on the 2 fair regions. There's a competition for which one is the most originally
decorated.
And yes, and on the Sunday, which is the last day, July the 23rd, there'll be a quiz. So I can put all these details up somewhere for you guys to look at. So there's a lot going on. Should be fun.
Yeah, we'll get them up on Google Plus or something and post the links. Yeah. Now there is of course, last Wednesday we had the final safari before the summer break, didn't we? So I presume you're going to take it easy a little bit for a couple of months to the end of, when it's the end of August we start again. So
we start again on 6th of September, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, forget the end of August, into September. But we had Joe playing, however I pronounce his name.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Yeah, wonderful stuff. That went on forever. I remember I was sitting there when he finally came off stage, and it was kind of midnight European time. I go, hang on, Safari normally finishes at 10:30, 11, doesn't it? But wonderful stuff. That ukulele kind of based, although it's not strictly ukulele, is it? He's been on this show and told me the details. But yeah, lovely music. It's sort of Latin-y, sort of jazzy sort of feeling. And I know somehow it kind of he does have backing tracks and stuff like that, but it's sort of it suits the virtual world rather. It's got an ambient feel to it, and despite having recorded backing, you know, it's sort of it's got that laid back troubadour feel that is so good.
It does, yeah.
In a lot of virtual performers. But something else that came up, and Karima may have thoughts on this too, I don't know. And I think we can go public with this a little bit. We in focusing on this German Fest as well. We were thinking that you look at things like OSCC that comes up near the end of the year, and there is a kind of very Anglo-American flavor to these things, partly I suspect because of language. And we were talking, you know, thinking that, well, you know, there's the Greek grids, Greek life, for example. There is the craft grid, which is a strong focus on Italy. As we know, 1,001 different German grids. There's Franco grid, which by its name says everything, and Dutch grids. And there is a lot going on in Europe, forget the rest of the world, that is not necessarily English language speaking. And the people on these grids seem to, we have the impression, or you especially have the impression, that there is quite a lot that the people on these grids would like to do, you know, be represented in a kind of conference or convention or something. And, you know, we were sort of talking about, well, maybe when the OSCC people get together again, we could put forward the idea of an international day, or maybe it's just something that would be completely different. It would be like an expo of Hypergrid International or something. I've probably said it all already, but what are your thoughts on that? I mean, because there really is a lot.
Well, I do think I know some people do come along to the OSCC who are obviously their first language isn't English. Obviously, that's been happening. But it would just be nice if we could, since it's about the community, there's a lot more aspects to the community that we could explore that would be interesting, and opportunities for people to show and tell about what their worlds are like. And if it's the language that's stopping them from knowing about it or participating, it would be nice if, since in virtual worlds everything is possible, maybe we could make this possible too, for them to be able to contribute and participate. And it would be a shame not to use their enthusiasm. I think we all sometimes in virtual worlds, and I'm sure Karima will agree with me, when you're doing anything creative, there come times when you run out of energy in a way. It can be exhausting. So, and sometimes just somebody else's enthusiasm can inspire and rekindle our enthusiasm and our energy to be creative. And I just think there's a lot of people out there, and of course some have participated. I think of Michelle Tech, who's an Italian lady who's on Craft Grid, and her Mathland builds. She's often spoken at the OSCC about that. But just to think, all these German grids, wow, they should be part of the community conference too, because they're certainly part of our community and they have a lot to share. So that would be fun if we can figure out a way to do it.
Well, I think, very much like, say, people on a grid in England or doing things in England, they can go to OSCC and we're okay with the language. But, what are the major things? Because a lot of instances of people doing it from Second Life to OpenSim is like English as a foreign language. Teaching that happens in OpenSim, because obviously you're not just teaching language, you can demonstrate in real life things and practice actions and stuff like that. And I'm quite sure there must be grids somewhere that are teaching German as a foreign language or Italian as a foreign language. So
Nick Sports Grid, do you remember we went to that? Nick, he has it's called 3D LES, and they teach French, German, and English, and that's such a cute grid. I love that grid. A nice man too. So it's going on. There are people out there who know more than one language. Ask Karima. Karima knows a lot of languages. She's
no, not a lot. No, just 3. Not a lot.
which
very smart.
Spanish and Arabic, but I would say I'm totally fluent in Spanish, but Arabic, I can get by. I don't read it very quickly. I can read it and I can't speak it, but I wouldn't say I'm a professional in Arabic. It's my third language.
Where are you actually based in real life?
Right now, I've been living in Costa Rica. I've lived here all my life, but I married a Jordanian many years ago, and so I lived in Jordan also for 14 years. So I have that. I'm still saying I never studied Arabic. I never studied Arabic, so I speak it because I learned it in the home. But it's like saying you learned English living in somebody's house. It's not going to be like university level English or anything like that. But I totally agree with both you and with Thirza that I think it's really important. I think one of the wonderful things that we have and the possibilities in OpenSim is to do things like this and to the collaborations that spring up from people just like Thirza says, you run in a kind of a low ebb and you don't, you're not inspired, and you'll meet somebody, you'll see, somebody's, build and maybe they don't speak your language, but they've spoken their language. You understand them from what they're doing creatively, and sometimes you can really, spark collaborations. That's one of my favorite things, is to be able to collaborate from people all over the world if possible. So I love the idea. I think it's wonderful. I would love to see that happen.
I say jumping around the hypergrid, sort of. I was talking to somebody yesterday and saying, how we all owe a debt of gratitude to Linda Kelly for producing some of the content here. But there is a point where jumping from grid to grid, I get a bit fed up of landing at a Linda Kelly mouth that looks the same on every grid, and so that collaborative thing or that surprise thing is great, because if I just click on a destination, I don't know where I'm going to end up, and then sometimes you just end up somewhere and think, wow, and the inspiration comes from it. You think, I'm at the low ebb, I'm out exploring, but then you can't wait. You're suddenly thinking, I don't want to go to another destination. I want to get back to mine because I'm now inspired by what I've seen.
Yeah. It's so true. That's very true.
And I actually remember back in the days of Second Life, there were a couple of people, I forget the names now, Lisa, I think her name was, but the guy, he was somehow attached to the State Department, I think, in the States, and their Dancing Inc. was their company, and they were doing a lot of what you call outreach, diplomatic outreach, and what tended to happen, of course, is they would have like they will build examples of the Islamic world and traditional cultures and things, and try and pull together for cultural exchange on the basis that the prejudices that exist in the real world just aren't there in the virtual world if you're on topic and communicating. And that was great. Although I must say, even the Arabic bills and things tended to have a bit of an American flavour because they were inside Second Life's walled garden, and they weren't actually on summer, you weren't actually teleporting into, a Middle Eastern server. You were actually still teleporting around Linden Labs, California servers. But, it's a subtle difference. I mean, it's all good intention, but,
No, I agree. That's true. You see builds and you think this person has never actually seen the place that they made a build of.
Yeah, it's like
a sanitized version. It's too clean, too perfect.
Yeah, or it's the textbook they've written. They're really fascinated by a culture or something, and they want to recreate it virtually, but then they've actually been to the culture.
That's very true.
And seen the underbelly, or even spoken the language. So
yeah, I never forget the time I went to see a build in Second Life. It was about Dante. It was about his Inferno.
Oh yeah.
And they had, it says there's the gate, and it says abandon hope, all ye who enter here. And the person who made it, they read that it was talking about a gate. So it was, I suppose, an English person. So they'd made a gate, but it wasn't like a gate in a medieval city wall. It was like a farm gate. Because for them, that was a gate. Just a fence.
A gate is not a gate always. That's right.
Yeah, they were imagining they were building it on their ranch in the Midwest somewhere.
A gate with a picket fence.
Medieval gate, and so in their head it was just this is what a gate looks like.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's the beauty of OpenSim, that you're really like the other day when we went to Florida, and you could just Adrian's world. I love Adrian, such a nice lady, and you could just see she lives in Florida. That build looks like you're really in Florida. You just feel it, and then you'll go to another place, and it's France. You can see it's some of the builds that Cherry makes. Her big, massive freebie mall, which is like a French town, and you just feel like you're in France when you're there. It's called Cerise. It's a region on Francogrid. And the same thing when we went to Australia. Do you remember we went to that?
Yes, that was
River, and that's Genevieve Page, and it's spectacular. The light, the trees, everything. Just you feel like you're actually, you definitely no longer at home. You're definitely abroad somewhere, and so you get these wonderful places, and that's part of the charm of OpenSim, because you're really moving around the world.
Yeah.
On these servers.
And there's a lot of great stuff happening in Australia, and of course, it's even more than Europe. I know there's a language barrier with Europe. There isn't with Australia, but of course they're in that totally opposite time zone, which means Americans late night collide with Australia at breakfast the next day, but that's just about it, So often, when we do safari, we are not even, we try and encompass European and American hours, but we're nowhere really close to Australia. We'd have to continue for 4 hours longer just to meet them at breakfast.
You were lucky. I don't know if you remember Uriah Heep. We went to his grid called Euphoria. If you would say, he got up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to be there for metaverse. Now that's dedication.
It is. It reminds me of Adam Frisbee on the space virtual platform. He seems to be available all hours of the day and night. But most of the time he's in the groups. I mean, it must be the middle of the night in Australia where he is. I think. When does he sleep? Does he sleep? Daytime as night, or does he get up early? Can't figure it out at all. But yeah, some of the international stuff is dedication. And I live on New York time, I guess, and I'm in London, so it means my organic hours are 5 hours out of sync with most of the people around me. But it's virtuality calls, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
One way or another. Yeah, so I mean, to extend that, I mean, the whole thing with what's going on in Europe, the reason I thought of like International Day in a way, or actually it'd have to be a 24 hours to be international. You've got you've got these grids scattered around the planet, and I mean, there's Japanese, Chinese, as you said, Australia. It's not just Europe. And South America too.
A Brazilian grid.
A Brazilian very big.
Yeah,
There.
there's lots of Brazilians, but they seem to follow the yo-yo grid around.
I don't know. I found about 8 of them, but they're not. Some of them are very small, and people looking for a quiet life, and some of them looking for drama.
Yeah, and in fact, South America seems to be one of these areas that is still very dominant in Second Life. I suspect it's because there's quite a lot of money to be made in virtual goods by people living in those economies, because they cash out, they make clothes, jewelry and stuff like that. When they cash out their lindens, they get paid in dollars. And of course, a dollar is good money in their exchange rates, whereas an American can live on it, they can. So I think there seems to be quite a lot of industrial South American activity there. But of course, that's more to do with marketing and microeconomies rather than necessarily, the open sim thing is very much a different thing. So do you think, I mean, how do you think, we know, both in terms of the productive environments, I guess, and just the great locations to go to. People like you and me put heads together and a few other people, we can figure out a load of destinations and dig up a load of people doing interesting things. How do you think, this should be something we take and put to somebody like Avacon and the OSCC as an extension of what they do, or do you think some kind of international flavored event for the hypergrid?
Well, I think
it will be something we should think of separately, or maybe.
I think probably the Avacon, staff need to take their time to figure out what they can feel that they can do logistically, because it's easy for me or you to have an idea, but they have to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
I think it'd be great, but I do think, obviously, because when you're talking about the German language, for example, that's limited really to Europe. There's not a lot of countries around the world where people speak German, so they would want to do events, and as with the Italians or the French, the most part of them would want to do events in European time. Although, of course, French, you've got the Quebecois, you've got people from the different islands that is a little bit more both sides of the Atlantic. But I should have thought that it would be nice if we could have maybe an event that would be in our evening, European evening. That would probably work out. I mean, I'm sure that the Avacon folks could give some good feedback about what's practical and what's possible.
As she says, logistics. I mean, talking as a television person, I mean, the idea of this thing is like, oh God, I want to run away, because how on earth do you broadcast something in German? Because the logistics of an Inworld event, like we do with Safari, isn't actually that difficult. We've got translator software, so people. Okay, it's difficult, but not. Never mind. We have translator software in text, for example. So if somebody's in text and telling us about something, we can give them a translator, and that means that people in the audience can read a translation in their own language.
And I think I think we could probably find enough people whose command of English is good enough and they feel confident enough to do an immediate translation into the other language.
Simultaneous.
And
simultaneous translation.
And something I did on this show once, I remember it very clearly. In fact, it might have been you who was on the show too. But I think I had Che Mango and somebody else in Franco Grid on. And we actually had a translator on one of these seats too. So it was a bit more like an interview. I was actually able to ask the question, the translator relayed it, got it back, and it was short enough that it didn't, viewers wouldn't have said, "Oh God, I'm turning off."
As long as the speaker paces themselves to give the translator a chance, then it's easy. It's not
exactly. I've done that in Spanish, and sometimes people will go on and on and on and on, and you just can't. You have to.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
it's very difficult. Mm-hmm.
And it's really annoying because you're like, well, do you want me to translate you?
Yeah, I'm not going to remember all this. Exactly.
I mean, that's certainly a good translator would make a human translator or avatar form.
I think
would make sense because. When you're broadcasting it, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine like a huge round table in a virtual world that's like the United Nations, where there's machinery at work behind the scenes, translating everything into everybody's earphones depending on what language they're in. I think that would be that'd be a bit beyond us. But
you could have groups. You can have groups and a group chat, and the group chat could be the person who's doing the translation. So you just join the group chat that is called Japanese or Arabic or whatever it is that is the language you want to be able to follow it. And then you just have a group chat filling up there, as long as people don't start saying hello to each other in chat.
yeah. Let them know it's a dedicated relay channel, not a gossip channel.
Yes.
But I think there are a lot of ways to make it work. I mean, something when I'm going through my news feeds every day, I mean, actually, even before I read the news feeds, I read all my YouTube subscriptions. Well, I watch them or scan them at least. And there's so much machinima and stuff comes out every day. Somebody. I no longer post links to some Second Lifers doing a vlog or whatever they call it every day with their interface art showing how you fit this garment on you. I'm sure it's of interest to some, but I mean, I wouldn't do anything else if I did these. But there must be about 3 regular programs now that come to, I don't know whether they're weekly or maybe more occasional, but they're like interview shows, talk shows, a bit like this, and they are in other languages, German or Dutch especially, Spanish, I think. And, I look at them and of course I can't understand them either. I think, well, this is a Second Life TV show. Should I post it or not? Now, I can't understand it, so I can't gauge its quality. So it's a bit of a dilemma because, if it had subtitles, then I would probably say, yeah, I'll post that because then, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm reposting my post to a blog and that blog is all in English, So I tend to leave out some of these, even though I'm increasingly aware of these programs happening. And, I'm sure a lot of people who are English language only subscribe to avatars on YouTube and things that they know or have picked up on, and they're possibly missing out on a lot of interesting stuff that is broadcast out there simply because it's not in their language. And there's no subtitles available. So, I mean, I think there is a sort of dilemma there. I mean, when we've been talking about like International Day, International Expo or something, I'm tending to think of a way of taking the whole world and its cultures and the things it's doing and making it accessible to an English language audience. But you could also put it the other way around. I mean, should we, and our, let's say, English Americans, English speaking world, should we be taking the effort to make available what we do in other languages to make it accessible? I mean, everybody says English is the world's language, and so is Spanish, by the way, and so is French. And
don't you think that the 3D visual is the language in this case?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's making something and they're on Fandoria or they're on Darius or they're on Hoisan or any of these grids, doesn't, the language, we've been to see play things on all three of those grids, and my German is poor to non-existent, but we still have managed to you still see the thing, even if the person can't tell you a huge amount about it. If they can bring some things, the show can be more than the tell, perhaps, or the telling can be in the showing, and that sort of could be less of a talking shop and more of a showing shop, because I think people are more interested. I think we've already done that, haven't we, on the Open Sim Community Conference? There's been an awful lot of talking shops, what the future is going to be, and it all turns out to be baloney anyway, because nothing ever happens the way people think it will. So it'll be much more interesting to see things. Let's show the community. Let's not just tell what we think the community is going to be or do.
I would
let's
agree.
show it.
When it comes to art and creativity, and especially everything that's focused on the visual, then the language, it's like music. I'm not talking about lyrics and songwriting, but music has always transcended language because it is a universal language. Especially if you're listening to symphonic music or any kind of instrumental music, there is no language required. The mood and the message and the words that aren't words are conveyed by the music. And, so visually too. We've got a similar thing. I'm reminded of I think it was Wednesday. We went to Resmela, didn't we? Yeah. And we were seeing a very technical demonstration in OpenSim of, there were two devices. One was being able to create like a holographic cube around all the avatars and load different scenes from Google Street Maps. So 1 minute we were dancing in the Grand Canyon, the next minute we're dancing in Rome. It was a bit elementary, but we were off the ground because we were in the middle of a globe. But it was proof positive or something. But in the second half, we were then taken up to a stage with a big panel on it, and the person talking to us was literally choosing from an on-screen system, and he was building without building. In other words, he was looking at a flat view like a map of the terrain, and he was pressing buttons to res buildings that followed walkways and things like that. There was no activity on the ground, anybody resing these things at all. It was all being done by a control panel and things. Now, there's some of what was happening there. In principle, I think it was wow to see. In practice, it was puzzling even for me. If that guy had been doing that in Germany and didn't speak English, I mean, I would not have made head or tail of it. So,
but bear in mind, Mal, that half the people that were there at the safari. Yara and Alex and Bink and Ariel and all their English is some of them okay and some of them pretty much non-existent. So they were already not following, but it's interesting. Even if you can't follow, it still has its interest, because if you think about it, week after week after week, our fine friends who are not English speakers, they come along on safari because they want to see it. They might not be able to understand everything, but they don't care. And I think we would feel the same way. So it's true. You might be with the whole technical. But if you're really that interested, you'll go and look for Ramesh's website, which is Resmela.
Yeah.
I want to say.
And then hit Google Translate.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, depends how interested you are.
That
So right.
that's a wonderful point about Safari, and I think actually it's a case of we're on Safari and I'll see chat going on, and it might be in Italian, French, German, who knows what. What is kind of nice, I mean, it's nice about Safari that there's a whole bunch of us meet up and go on these things anyway. But what is nice is you very rarely get one person all on their own who's, say, a German speaker. There'll normally be a couple of them. So they, although they're part of the whole group, they can also converse between themselves.
While people are really nice, and how many people have just showed up and just become part of the Safari? They didn't need to be. And now they're the ones that help everybody and make sure nobody's left behind. So it's really transcends language. That's important, but only up to, and especially if we don't promote only English things and we go and see everything. And it makes for a fun group. And I just think it'd be fun to have on the OSCC a bit more of these other grids that maybe don't feel involved. And it's not because of maliciousness on anybody's part, but it's just because, there's only so many people that any one person can know and get involved with. It would be just nice to have more of an international flavor to at least part of it, because they do have an awful lot to show us and teach us and share. So it would be fun.
Maybe it'd be a thought to consider extending the special Safari in that way, so there were a lot more shorter destinations where people could be taken to see things that have been done around the world.
That could be.
Okay, very great food for thought. Let's shift my focus a little bit now to Karima, but with that, I'll keep the link going here, because obviously Safari, we're going to talk about the Vortex thing in a short while, although ironically it's something that's been around for a while, and in fact Safari did visit that. But before I do, just you were saying you speak 2 other languages and you've done stuff in Spanish and things. How much are you aware, Karima, of like other language activities in virtual worlds, particularly OpenSim?
Well, I'm not, honestly, I'll be very honest with you. Since my working schedule did not coincide with taking the Safari tours on Wednesdays, I really have missed out on so much. I've missed out on visiting. So I don't know in OpenSim. I'm kind of one of those like closeted builders that when I go in, it's usually just to like build, and people drop in sometimes and I get to know them because they've dropped into my sim, or sometimes I do go visit other sims, just because somebody, or worlds, because somebody says, oh, you've got to go see this. So I do, but I've missed out really. I think that was the hypergrid Safari when I was able to go, when I wasn't working in those hours, was just wonderful. So I have to say that I'm a little out of it. In Second Life though, just know that yes, I'm pretty connected with the Spanish community. I have a Bolero bar on my sim, so a lot of people from Spain and South America, Brazil visit, so I'm pretty connected with them. And then the Arab community too. For example, we just went through Ramadan, just past Ramadan in May, and a lot of sims hosted Ramadan activities and the Eid activities. So I visited, but I haven't connected like that yet in OpenSim. It's my own fault, and also just my situation for not being able to travel at the times when I loved it when I could go. I just love traveling, and the Safari was just wonderful. So I miss it. It's a great
Can I just
vehicle.
put in a word for Metaverse tours? Don't forget, on Sundays there's Metaverse tours that leads from Kitely.
That's
Every
right.
week.
I do. I actually do know that. Yes, I do. And Sundays, for some reason, I'm kind of like off the grid a little bit on Sundays, into the swimming pool or at the beach, especially now in this weather. That's my problem on the weekends. I'm trying to just have my weekend. So, but you're right.
Until people might, like me, lasso you to come on TV.
And they make me come in exactly on a Sunday. Exactly. Only for Mal. That's right. But no, you're right. There is that. And I should just do it because they've come and visited my worlds, and I should go and see what is happening also, I
don't blame you, Karima, because one does have to have a focus. you can't always, if you spend all your time looking at other people's stuff, you'll never make your own. So
well, there's got to be a balance though there. So,
Yeah.
and I'm totally like pushed over on one side. I'm not very balanced, but I have 13 worlds. And I mean, just going through them and making sure everything is working on them takes me some time every week. I do. I make sure that everything, I got a message from somebody saying, oh, we can't get up on Vector, nothing's working. And oh my God, I have to run and see what it is, so 13 Worlds keeps me busy, just making sure that it's all functioning properly. People are visiting and yeah, but I would like to balance.
That's astonishing. 13 worlds. So do you mean 13 regions or 13 actual worlds?
13 actual worlds. I mean, each one is very, very different from the other. I started 6 years ago.
Is that all on Kitely?
That's all on Kitely. They're all on Kitely. Yeah, excuse me. They're all in Kitely on the grid. Yeah, they're all in one grid, but they are separate worlds. Each one of them.
They're all very different.
Region.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all very different. That's true. Yeah. So, that kept me busy for the last few years, building all those.
And they are very different. The diversity of your creativity is a lot of fun. Just
thank you.
Around because you just, good Lord, this is completely different. Because that makes you very unique as an artist. That you're not just recreating the same thing over and over again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, I wanted to say something about that. I don't know, when you show the first picture, when you show the picture of Vector's Vortex, just to tell you that a couple of my creations, especially the first one was with Vector, have been just born out of a big mistake.
Okay.
I mean, anybody who knows building it all knows what I did is I exploded a prim by accident.
Well, what I was going to ask you more about these different worlds, and I was just thinking, then the vortex is probably a good place to start, partly because I've got pictures here that you can talk over, but also, of course, although there was a recent post from Selby about it, it's not at all a recent build, but Safari itself, of course, Thirza and I and everybody else did actually visit this particular.
You did in November of 2014. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So if I actually get James to look at our picture screen, I'll load the first one now.
Okay.
Which you can see too. Maybe you can tell us all about it, and
yes,
so might maybe even have memories.
It's so embarrassing in a way, but this is some of the greatest. I mean, what I think are the most creative things I've done have just been born out of horrible mistakes. But I had the idea, and I have to just talk a little bit about when I went into Second Life in 2007. One of the sims that I found so healing was the space park. Okay, and I thought, if I ever could do a space park, I would love to be able to do it. Well, voila, here I have all these possibilities in OpenSim on Kitely. And so I said, well, I'm going to do my own version of a space park, right? So I knew that, I wanted people to not realize, I wanted to be in black darkness like space, so that I would just build it up and up and up and up. So it goes up like 3,000 meters, and it gives you the feeling that it's immense, because I have a lot of off sim rotation, way off sim rotation, where like these planets are going way off and coming in. So it makes it look like it's 5 times bigger than a region, up there in space, right? So that was working. I was really happy about that. When I got up to the top, I wanted something special, to be Vector's place. So what I did is I exploded a sculpt by accident. I was trying to make this big sculpt, and I put the wrong texture in, and it exploded. And there you see it right there on the screen. But when I put a rotation on it, I thought, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It exploded in such a gorgeous way. It really did. The coloring, the lighting, I could have never done that on my own. If I wanted to try to light something like this, it never would have worked. So I said, okay, well, let's let this rotate around the whole platform. And it became, Vector's main platform, Vector's Vortex. So, yeah. So that's what it is, a big exploded sculpt.
My only one attempt at a piece of art.
Was it exploded sculpt?
No, well, it's a joke, right? Basically, I thought, I looked at sculpt maps, right? I didn't understand them at all. Right, so I thought, I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to make an extremely psychedelic mess using primary colors, and then I'm going to import that and add it to a prim as a sculpt map and see what happens. So I did.
And what happened?
Well, I got a shape, and I put a texture on it and started it rotating. And that to date is about the only attempt I've ever done. I mean, the only thing, it is unique. So maybe it's art. I don't know. But, you know,
Well,
I sort of try it, you know, see
yeah.
what happens.
I don't know if it's art, but I know that it's very effective. It's like something like it's awe-inspiring for me personally. When I get up to the top and there's these colors swirling around, it's like, you know, I'm very easy to please in that area. You know, I get very excited about things, and I just, my mouth was open. I went, oh my goodness, I'm going to keep it. I'm just going to keep it like this. It's really nice. So anyway, everything just built. The idea of vector was born also from a poem. Okay, the poem was basically. And this is interesting too, because I'm kind of like trying to get into this area a little bit myself right now in my life. It was kind of a lament saying, okay, I've gotten this far in my life and I don't know anything about vectors or vortexes. You know, I went into English language. I went into, you know, ESL teaching, into coaching, into everything that has to do with language. And I never went into the math, the sciences, you know. And here I am at my age, you know, like going halfway through my life. And you know, wow, is it too late? You know, and so I made it like a yearning. You know, the poem, it speaks in the on the sim. You can hear it. It's like saying, I don't think I can ever get to you. You know, it just seems like there's so little time. But actually, right now I'm studying Python. I'm studying coding. I'm my second course, and well, I just hang out with coders. All my friends are coders, so it's like it just had to happen. But I'm going to just do a few courses of Python, and then I'm going to go into like scripting in OpenSim and, you know, maybe JavaScript too. But, you know, just to start with like quote unquote, you know, a real language before I go into something like LSL or OpenSim. Anyway, so that's what it is. That it was really based on that. The poem itself says that. You know, it says, I don't know if I can really ever get to you. It's so beautiful, but how can I get there? So that was the feeling. You know, you get down below, you sit on this book. You know, the book is going to take you. The books are your way of getting to places you think you can't go, and it takes you all the way up to the top. That's the idea of it.
I must admit, I went back the other day, and I managed to fall out of the darn thing.
Oh, yeah, you know, I did put up a guardrail, thinking that nobody would ever do that, would ever walk off the edge.
Oh, believe me, I ever since I joined Second Life, what is it, about 12 years ago or something like that? I mean, I've been notorious for never being able to cope with stairs or anything that requires walking straight. My avatar seems to be permanently slightly wobbly, you know.
Oh, well, thank you, Mel, for telling me, because I think I'm going to put an little invisible fence around there so people that just don't walk off the edge and fall into space, because it is a long way down. And there's as I was saying, Thirza knows, there's like a very lovely way down. You can sit on a cushion and just float down. You know, it's very nice. So, you know, so yeah, definitely. Sorry about that, Mel. But I've had visitors recently. It's been very nice. You know, Selby brought a group and did the movie, and I've had a few groups come to see Vector recently. Like they just discovered it was built 3 years ago, but it's nice to see people enjoying it. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next picture, so you can do a bit more. Oh yes, you're in the vortex now, aren't you?
Yeah, that's actually. You go through it when you come down. You know, when you come down. If you don't come down the way you did. At first, if you float down gently, you'll float through this level of clouds of the vortex, and all of a sudden you see the sim below, and then you realize what you thought was like immense is just a little square you're coming down on, just like one little region, but it's very nice. So yeah, that's how you kind of like go down to the ground again. You pass through that.
Let's move to the next one then. No, this is another view of the...
Yeah, it's what you find in space. I mean, like, you know, I said it was like kind of real space and artistic space and poetic space. So you probably don't find too many of those figures in real space. But it's nice when you're floating by, just to float by one of these, you know, when you're going up or you're coming down. So yeah, I have these, and I have planets, you know, very more realistic planets, meteorites, strange, you know, space junk that's like floating around, artistic space junk. And the trip takes about 5 minutes to go up. So, you know, there's a lot to see on your way up.
I daren't ask James to pan around to the adjacent region, but on the skybox adjacent to this, or one of them, I have a build which is meant to be part of my storytelling. And basically it's a whole region skybox with a space texture. And it's also a sim high, so it's a complete box. And, you know, because it's space, you just have no sense of up and down. And
Wonderful.
I've got planets, and I think Thirza or Fuchsia gave me some of the stuff that's in there. And basically, when you accidentally get teleported in the story up into this space platform, you've got to go into fly mode, and you've got to find the clue that will get you to teleport down to Earth again. And you've got to fly, so you're not only flying across the width of a whole sim in two directions, but you've got the same amount of height. And believe me, it feels like vastness itself and totally impossible unless you pick up on the clues.
That's wonderful.
It's the optical illusion thing, but it's very effective. So let's move to the next one, which is right.
Okay, so you get to this point here. This is like you've actually had to fly with your own little wings through this vortex. You get to this landing place here, and there's books, and these are the books, as I said. You can look at it through a telescope. There are books about astronomy, books about vortexes and vectors, and then you sit on one of the books, and the book will take you all the way up to the top. So that's how it goes. Yeah, that's how it gets you up to the top, which, as I said, is about a 5-minute trip through poetic space.
Yeah. Okay, let's try and get there.
Yeah. And this is actually coming back down. When you're coming back
right.
down, well, yeah, you can just sit on like a little kind of meditation pose, and you'll just there's that's Vector's vortex behind. You just kind of just float down, through the through space again, and it's very nice. Yeah, it's just relaxing. I have a great stream on here. I have an ambient stream.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and so it's the stream with the vastness of, like you say, black space. If you make sure you set your especially if you set your draw very high, no problem. There's no lag up there, like 300 draw, and put on the right settings. It just makes you lose yourself in space. It's very relaxing.
I have a friend of mine who I've actually mentioned a couple of times on the show, not by name. She's somebody who came into Second Life a long while ago, and she was intrigued, like walking around in the cartoon. And then when she realized that all the other avatars around her were actually real people and she was the center of attention, she quit immediately and swore never to go back in. It's like she couldn't cope with being the center of attention with lots of people around her. And that was that. And it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, she said, we're talking, she says, what I'd like is like a space where I can put on my chill out music and just sit in a hammock on the beach and hear the water lapping and stuff like that. And, I said, well, you go back to Second Life or come to Open Sim, even better. I'll make you a place to sit in, and suddenly this woman who swears she'd never go back into a virtual world said, could you? And actually her purpose isn't, the community and what that's got to offer. Is simply that she likes the idea of having something on the screen, like a screensaver in front of her, that is totally ambient, that she can meditate in and sort of move to a limited extent to not encounter anybody else,
Oh, well, that's another reason, that's another reason to go to virtual worlds. Mel, I did want to mention, though, on Vector and on several of my my worlds, especially the Hudson Line. You went to the Hudson Line. You rode the train with me, remember? And yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember that? That was like a year or so ago. And then Hudson Line, let's say Vector, In Your Head. These all use keyframe animation scripting to move the avatar from one place to another. So this is because my collaboration with Dale Innes, who has been so important.
Yes.
He's part of he's part of everything. He got the boats to move on all my boats, and I keep saying my boats would never leave the dock. Nobody get up to Vector. The train would never move if it wouldn't be for Dale. So he's very much a part of my builds, especially my last 5 builds. He's been very much.
I don't think I've ever met Dale at all in Open Sim. I know him from the old days of Second Life. He used to be at Prokofy Never's meetings and
he's an oldie. He's an old veteran.
I didn't even realize he was in Open Sim. So
he's got his own sim too. He is, but usually I can drag him in. He's busy, and I can usually drag him in just for a few hours at a time. when he can give me that time, to help me on especially in scripting of The Sims. So he does all of that, and in our movies too. The movies that Natasha and I make, he's our main scripter for our films too. He gets these wonderful special effects like dice falling out of the sky and things like that. We actually record in real time. So he makes that possible. No green screening. Just really doing it. So yeah.
Now, this final picture is a friend of all of ours, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Thirza might have taken this picture. Did you take this picture, Thirza, of Fuchsia on Vector?
I might have.
Yeah, it's a great it's a great shot, and that was a really fun safari. I enjoyed hosting all of you so much. It was the first time we ever had so many people on Vector, and because I think it was up in the air, it held. We all danced, we moved around. It was great. It was really a lot.
There was no lag. Kitely was pretty good for that. The only thing we seem to have a problem on Kitely with these days is voice. When we go to the Shanaki library, voice will cut out for a lot of the people. So.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah.
But apart from that, usually spot on. Actually, that photo might be by Wizardos Chrome, maybe.
Maybe.
She's a great photographer, so it may have been her.
Yeah, maybe. I can look it up, actually. I have it on my blog. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful picture.
It's interesting. I mean, Fuchsia's style of avatar is, just uniquely suited to that, really. I mean, she's always been totally different in real life, actually. But it just fits. It looks like a science fiction book cover painting or something almost, But it's worth saying, isn't it, Thirza, that Fuchsia here, and I guess Wizard Chrome were very instrumental with you, not so much now because moved on, but in the earlier days of Safari.
Yes, definitely. She was the third person to be part of the group, and she's contributed so much. She contributed lots of outfits. She just was a wonderful support for all the organization when I was not able to be on the safari. She ran several of them and just did a great job. And we miss her. We miss her a lot. She's a very talented lady and doing very well in her real life jobs now. So
yes, I get an endless.
She's busy there.
I guess
that's wonderful.
I get an endless feed of, I guess probably Facebook or somewhere when I see them, of these wonderful murals that she does.
Yes.
Oh, and they're things like on derelict buildings and some optical kind of illusion stuff. Like there's one I actually visited when she was doing it, which is like she's painted it so you can see it's like the wall is missing from the building, and you're looking into imaginary floors of the building. And she modeled the whole thing in the virtual world, probably in OpenSim, so that, she knew what the real world building's paint job was going to look like, because she created it virtually before she actually started painting the wall in the organic world. But there's other things she's done. I imagine something like an old archway made of stone somewhere in, some derelict building, and she'll have painted it, but painted the surround too to make it into something totally different. It's a bit like a real world. Remember that? What's his name? Magritte, the artist. Who used to draw doors into different spaces. So the main painting would be one environment, and then be an open door into another. And she's doing a lot of what I see as a sort of parallel thing in real life. So very creative woman. Yeah. Good stuff. So I think that was the last picture. Yes, it was. So I can plan that back. So tell us about some of the other. How many was it? 13 worlds.
Yeah, well, I have 13. I do have 13 worlds, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but I started in. Let's see, it's 6. I'm 6 years old in Kitely. I started in June. 6 years ago, and I came onto Kitely because of D.B. Bailey. I think I told you, Mal, this story. I came onto because he was building a world on Kitely. I never had heard of Kitely. This was 6 years ago, and so he said, oh no, you must come and see my world. I said, okay. He said, look, he said, it's in beta. They're giving free worlds away. Just get a world. I said, what am I going to do with the world? I don't know how to build. I don't have any idea what I would even do. I said, I mean, I can't, I probably, all I could make are mud pies. That's what I said. I could probably just make mud pies. He said, well, just make a whole world of mud pies. Why not? And I said, well, yeah, why not? So, so I did. I got my free world at that time. It was in beta, and that's the rest is history, as they say. I did start to learn a little bit. I'm still not a builder, and I don't consider myself a builder, but I consider myself a creator of spaces. I'm not a builder, but I can put together something that's it's interesting. Mm-hmm.
It's always fun to see what happens too. I'm not really a builder. I mean, eventually I found how to make a prim go flat, and rotate it so I had a floor and a wall and a roof kind of thing, and then eventually made a sloping roof and stuff. But then I discovered sculpt maps and things like that, and I still have no idea how to really do them or work from scratch. But it's like that the so-called work of art I mentioned in passing. Why not just try that and see what happens?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's you're not being judged. I mean, that's what's so wonderful, and I mean, if you are, oh well, you're just doing it, just like you say, to experiment and to see what's possible. I think that was the excitement that I felt when I finally did get my first world, which is called Heresy of the Intimate. That was because that's such a strange title, I know, but it was actually born out of a story that I was writing, a kind of a serial story in my blog called The Colored Dreams. And it actually had a lot of followers at that time. And I would, print up another chapter about twice a month. And finally, I decided, well, maybe I could do something like that, like, make the tent up on the hill that I talked about. So I started trying to do that. And that was the exciting part of, I realized, oh my goodness, anything you can think of, you can figure out how to do it, even if you have to use like some tricks and whatever, but you can figure out, you can do it in some way, you can do it. My builds to this day still are very primitive. It's my form, I have primitive builds, but hopefully they captivate you. When people go in, they take you over. They're immersive. They're, they're very inclusive. The latest one, our last one that we did, and also once again, Dale provided the scripting to make a rolling ball, roll from one end of the sim to the other and go through all these different things. And it was like a metaphor of life, birth and death. And so, yeah, he did that. And so if you walk into the sim, you'll see like a NPC walking through a maze, and you'll see these balls rolling, going by you. And, so many of the things, and I do give credit for this also. And I want to say this too. So many of the things that you see on my sims, I have found an open sim. I found it in the open sim because other creators have been generous enough to allow you to copy or sell you for nothing, for, literally zero. And so I was able to, find dinosaurs and find volcanoes and find everything all over the grid. And, it's just hats off to all the creators who share their work. I try to share mine. I put my permissions that anything you see in my sims, you should be able to copy and take with you if you want, and yeah, I think it's just wonderful. That's what I love about OpenSim.
Yeah, me too. I just collect things, and I think by tradition, I suppose I'm a graphic designer from way back when, and that really is an art. It doesn't matter whether it's a stage or a magazine or whatever it is. It's the art of putting things together.
Yeah, well, maybe I have that talent at least.
Yeah,
I think.
And I think there is a magic, isn't it? When it's like being a rag and bone man and hypergridding around and picking up anything you can.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm not there to resell it or make a profit as a rag and bone man does. I'm there to dump it all somewhere and try and make sense of it. So I love some of the regions I was playing around with down here where it is pure juxtaposition. I had to think of it, I had to say, right, well, this island is in something like a Bermuda Triangle, so who knows what's landed here or, and, so this was my excuse for having medieval, Britain, next to a harem in a castle, and mixing up cultures and elements of mythology and just objects, and in no fiction, really, let alone real life, do they ever belong together. But, I'm thinking up a storytelling excuse why they ought to belong together.
But
On how they could have happened. And it is that fun of just montaging the things together to get what you end up here. Every component you may have used may have come from somewhere else, but what you've ended up with is put together in a way that is actually a unique artwork.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think there's actually two focuses on, I mean, there's a group of people that like to make everything really real. I remember when I was in Second Life and I lived on the Costa Rican Sims, and Giancarlo was the CEO of the Costa Rican Sims. He was very, very delicate about anything like, oh no, you never find these plants in Costa Rica. Oh no, not these flowers. These flowers are never in Costa Rica, right? And I said, look, I live here. I know, that you can have these flowers, but okay. But then one day I went horseback riding and I rode up with a friend of mine to the top of the volcano. And he came flying over. He got so mad. He said, you can't ride a horse to the top of a volcano. Everybody knows that. And I said, well, Giancarlo, you can't fly either in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Except in an airplane. So, I mean, we have to get, either, I mean, this is virtual. This is like, let's, be able to do it. I do understand, I understand people that have Sims where you can't be taller than, 1.50 m and all these like kind of rules. And if you accept the rules, that's fine. Everything has to be exactly the textures of the period and the time. I understand that. I accept it. I live in one of those actually there in New Toulouse. But I love also the possibilities, and that's what you used to see in the old days in the mainland of Second Life, and you see it in OpenSim too, like you say, making collages, montages out of things that you've collected, that you found, that you've traveled and picked up some wonderful things and some animals and trees, and you put them together in a very special way. I'm sure you and I could go together and collect the same things, and what you put together and how you do it and what I put together would be two totally different worlds. So this is wonderful too.
Yeah, just sort of a new TV show idea. We'll collect together a load of prims and things, put them on stage, and challenge two people to take the same objects and create it.
Exactly.
See who creates the best thing. Yeah, I mean, it's like that, isn't it? It's
It is. It can be if you have that attitude. It can be, of course. It can.
And the physics downstairs here in the bit next door that I call my estate, that started on reaction grid eons ago. And, the top of the mountain is the frozen north, and down below is the tropics. But actually, forget flying. I mean, if you find a way to climb up that mountain, it takes about 3 minutes. There is no possible mountain in the real world with such a differing climate that could really be achieved. To do it properly, you'd need about 500 regions at the base.
Right.
steady climb to Everest or whatever. So it's you've got to suspend belief, but. That's virtual environments for you, really. There's no rule book. So, it's often, some purists, will say to me, why do you bother putting seats here on your stage for people to sit on? But everybody uses seats because we search for this tangible anchor that allows us to say, well, this virtual world that's surrounding us is very different than the real world, but at least we recognize the seats and we know what to do with it, sit on it, It is true, there was somebody in Second Life, they're probably still at it, who was building whole regions. Now, they were actually a qualified architect, right? And some architects will come into Second Life to build their buildings as a way of templating something they're going to do in the real world and show it off to a client. But this was actually Philip Rosedale came to London to Architectural Society to talk to him, and he'd actually missed us completely because he had a long slideshow showing wonderful architecture in the virtual world. But he'd missed completely the fact that there were some architects who were architecting for the virtual world. In other words, they were trying to create virtual spaces of utility that didn't actually obey any of the rules of the real world. So if you don't need to make an auditorium with seats to host an on-world environment, then maybe you can create something else that behaves in a totally different way. Probably has a bizarre learning curve, but is conceivably a future. Just as one architect might say, well, I'm going to imagine 100 years in the future when I want to build a conference center on the space station. Maybe not even in orbit, in outer space. So you can get into all that kind of Escher-like design, because the utility, if it doesn't have normal physics and gravity, the possibilities for design will be totally different. Because you could have somebody in one seat, let's say they have a seat, who's hanging upside down from the ceiling talking to another person who's on the floor, because gravity doesn't exist. It might look stupid when you sit in a virtual world on a screen because you've never been in space. But if you weren't reliant on gravity, there's nothing actually abnormal about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
One time in Second Life, I gave a Halloween reading, a poetry reading in Halloween on my sim, and I had this big old castle. And so what I did is I told everybody when they came in, I was hypnotizing them. I had them all just on float balls in the air. I love those float balls, by the way. They're so wonderful. So I had everybody turned upside down. So they weren't like facing up, they were like looking down, So I had them above me, looking down on me on the stage, and they were floating at different angles and stuff and just kind of going up and down. And it was magic. It really was, and everybody loved it. And everybody could suspend belief for an hour to just be floating in the air, and listen to this Halloween reading. So yeah, I love this possibility.
Yeah. There's
real life is so real, it really is.
I don't know whether you've come across a performer called Grace McDonough in Second Life.
Excuse me?
There's a performer, a singer, a songwriter called Grace McDonough in Second Life.
Oh, no, I haven't. No.
She's rather well known in the real world too, but not under that name. She's a tech woman. But that's a musician avatar. She escapes, just writes songs and plays from home. They're all her own. And she did a thing called Muse Immersion many years ago. And it was all top secret, hush hush. And then she got hold of a few of us to show us a preview. And what she'd done is she'd recorded a new album. I don't know whether it's released as a CD, but it's a new album of her songs, right? And she invited us to this location, and it was like a little round table auditorium. We all took our seats, and she was on a stool in the middle getting ready to sing her songs, showcased a new album. What we weren't told, except for the fact was to make sure we were all seated, right, was that wasn't quite what was going to happen, because the moment she was about to start the first song, somebody moved the entire seating with the entire audience up a level, and we were in a holographic environment that suited the song, her first song. And when she went to the second song, we were moved further up into the sky, into a surround environment which was made for the second song. And so as we listened to her performing the album, 12 songs or whatever, every song was a whole change of environment. And the only constant was her sitting on the stool, except halfway through she shifted to piano. But the audience and all the basic anchoring system was just moving up with every song, but the environment we were in for each song was totally almost unrecognizable. You just like, shit, what happened? How did I get here?
That's wonderful.
And it's that similar thing. She was actually just taking the audience and letting them play, be part of it. I know it's heavily orchestrated, obviously, but that sort of same thing. The possibilities we have here are endless, really. Let me. He's been very quiet. He's doing multitasking on cameras, but I'm wondering if James either has heard any comments from the audience, if we have one, or has any questions of his own.
No, I don't have any questions, and we just had George had been in the audience, and he had to take off, so he said he had to go over to the Maritime Club, which I completely understand. Oh, yeah. And other than that, no, I'm just enjoying learning so much. There's the amount of creativity is just so amazing. in Open Simulator. It's just fantastic.
Mind-boggling,
Yeah,
as they say.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
wonderful.
Hey Mel, I'm afraid
Yeah.
I have to leave you guys. I just wanted to remind everybody, of course, there's Oscarid birthday coming up in July, and then there's going to be the Avatar Fest, which is the thing that Handheld and Erin Galen do, and that's it's already open for people who want to sign up to have a booth or to perform or to be a greeter. And that's avatarfest.net. You can find all the information there. And then, of course, Festavi, the Francogrid-based avatar design event, that's coming up, and that'll be September, October, sometime like that. And I'm going to be spending the summer organizing the new trail, which is called WOSKI, which is like Wiki, but it's with OpenSim. So what OpenSim knows is, so that's going to be sort of an encyclopedia-based trail. So I'm looking for a region or a grid that has some sort of factually based, but can be perfectly artistic subject matter that relates to a real world thing. So it could be about, I don't know, a book, or it could be about a country or an invention or a scientific discovery, or it doesn't matter what it's about. As long if you could find a Wikipedia page about it, then it can be in the trail. So anybody who has something that they think might be interesting for that can contact me. You can always leave me a message on my Francogrid avatar or on Google Plus. That will find me too.
I should have known you weren't taking a holiday.
No, really, no.
No such thing as time off, is there? Never mind. Now, if I'd known that near the beginning of the show, I'd be fine trying to get more out of you on this. That sounds like a wonderful project. So it'd be like the trail will kind of be online.
It'll be an alphabetical trail. There'll be portals in alphabetical order. So B can be for Belfast or burlesque, and W can be for Wales or Wales. I don't mind, as long as it's something that is based in factual information. So if you do a build about Rome, you can't have the Tower of Pisa there. That would be silly.
Yeah.
You know, so it has to be basically tells people something about the culture or a book or a song. It doesn't really matter what it is.
So it'd be, in a way, it'd be like an interactive wiki.
An interactive 3D encyclopedia.
Yeah. Great idea.
Wow.
Anyway, so anybody who wants to be part of it, I'd be very happy. I have 26 letters in the alphabet, so there's room for everybody.
Yep. Multiple.
Apologies, I can't stay with you guys longer.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was gonna sign you off with have a good break, but it doesn't sound like you're going to. You just found another job for yourself to do, haven't you? It's unbelievable. Okay. Well, thanks for coming. I'm gonna let you say goodbye and then get James to pan the camera around so that you can make what we call a discreet exit.
Bye, Thirza.
Bye, darling. I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah,
bye.
Hopefully.
Thanks for coming. Bye. Right. There we go. All vanished. If the camera got that, I don't know. It's called a poof. It's called a poof. That's what we call it. Woof, and gone.
Completely off screen. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. So that was. Oh God, I was about to say something else. I've forgotten what it was. I'd lost the thread when Thirza said, "Oh dear." What was I talking about before this? Well, we were talking. Yeah. Is that another voice? I keep hearing. Never mind. It might be a bit of feedback from somewhere. Okay, so coming back to the Kitely worlds you've got. Karima.
Mhm.
Is there a central one that is like got hypergates in it to all your different regions, or is there somewhere people have to go to look them all up? Because obviously, the unique thing about Kitely is the worlds tend to come up on demand when you go to them,
Yeah, that's
and,
true. I don't
and
have a hypergate. That's something I should think about. I don't have one.
mm,
You're right. But I do have, if you look up my name under Kitely, under worlds, public worlds, all my worlds will come up under my name. So it's pretty easy
okay, yeah,
to find them. And yeah, as I said, I started with this first one, and the last one, the first world was called Heresy of the Intimate, and the last world is the Unmindful World, which the title of the world actually is very interesting because Dale and I decided that this is the first time we were going to just take over a sim, a world, a green square, and without having any idea what we were going to do, build something. So we had no plan, no idea. And normally we're very planned. We did the Hudson Line. Well, Dale knows the Hudson Line personally, so he knew the route of the Hudson Line. So we kind of researched it and things like that. But we knew what we were doing before we even set our feet down on the world. But this time with Unmindful, we just did it. And, I came to the conclusion that you don't really have to know. In order to create a world, you don't have to know what you're going to create. You just have to begin. That's all you have to do. So that's why it's called Unmindful. Without having any idea what we were going to do, we built this really one of my favorite worlds now. It's my newest and most favorite, just because it was born out of itself. Do you know what I mean? I know you created that place. You know what I'm trying to say? Without having any idea. And all of a sudden it did have a big purpose in it. We made a movie on it. Natasha and I made a movie on it that was very successful. People liked it very much. We got like over 1,000 views that, from machinima without promoting it. That's pretty good. And our fellow machinima makers enjoyed it too. But it was because it just turned into something much bigger than Dale and myself, much bigger than anything. And certainly without any planning, it just grew and it became something. And that was a wonderful lesson for me personally, to see that you don't have to have a plan. You just have to begin. And, poetry, I know you're a graphic artist, so maybe you also probably experience this in your work when you don't really know what you're going to do, but if you just start, something comes. The same with poetry. Put that, I like to write sometimes with a pen and a pad, as well as on a computer. And if I just put the pen to the pad and just start the first line, then that's it. It's sometimes a poem will come, so we did it the world that way and it worked, I'd like to invite you, Mal. Hopefully we'll get together and I'll invite you to come to Unmindful.
You can actually give me a tour of all 12 comes
Yeah, that's fun. It takes a while.
No, it's funny. I'm when I wake up in the mornings, or actually to be more precise, the early afternoon, here, I wonder about, I just drink lots of coffee, even before I eat breakfast, but I wander around for maybe 1 or 2 hours just talking to myself, which might sound peculiar, but like I'm thrashing through things, ideas or ways of saying things and whatever. And it's all a process, I've often found that, give me a canvas, I go and put me on it. I don't know where to begin. But I can be musing on something and then suddenly there'll be this spark and I just can't wait to rush in and start. And it's like the way life forms itself, kind of organic. You just maybe start with that little spark. And in one reality, it moves in one way, and another reality, it would move in another way. I'm quite sure I've plonked a few things down in virtual worlds and thought, I'm going to do that. That's a great idea. And before I've actually really started on it, my mind has wandered off and come up with an even better idea. So
exactly.
the planning is almost useless. It's simply taking the sparks.
Yeah, I agree.
Running with them,
Yeah, the organic, as you say, that's a wonderful way to just like let itself create itself out of itself. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I actually think what we should try and do is to. I went with Joe Builder to his region once, and I sort of filmed it as we were wandering around talking. It's difficult to do without a separate cameraman. It looked rather amateur, like an amateur machine around two, where the camera's just following two avatars. When I put it up, I actually called it Gridstop #1, and ever since then I've been thinking of doing more grid stops, which is the idea being is you land somewhere and get met by the creator or the host and get walked around and talk about it.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
maybe
that's a good idea.
Maybe we should do a sort of 13 grid stop.
Well, I'd be happy to host your grid stop for my 13 worlds. Honestly, one world out of the 13, I have to be honest, one of them is it's called film sets, and it's the world that Natasha and I use. For like sometimes we use NPCs for dance scenes and things like that. We use it as we film in both Kitely and Second Life. Almost all our recent films have been filmed in both, and so we use that as like a film set. So that really isn't like a big public world. There's not a lot to see. It's kind of like just a film set. But the other ones all have themes, and one of them too that I'd like to take you on is the one entitled "In Your Head." It's another ride. It's like the space ride, but it's like we just divided the brain. It's kind of an old-fashioned concept of how the brain works, right? Right brain, left brain. Very stereotyped idea, but actually very ingenious too. You just like start to go up. You start at the bottom and you go up. And I had a friend of mine who works in mesh. I said to him, Rag, I need you to make a sim-wide head. He said, "You're kidding." I said, "No, I'm not. I mean, I want the head to take up the entire sim." He said, "Well, that's pretty crazy, but okay." So he did. He presented a sim-wide head to me, and so you travel inside this head until you get up to the very, very top thoughts, up to the thoughts. But it has, very right brainy, left brainy kind of things. There's everything from emotions, love, order, books, math. It's all in your head, and that's kind of fun. And it's like about another 5-minute ride. Has some great music, and I'd love to take you on that one. That
sounds good. So what it's like each compartment of the brain is like I don't know what it looks like, but maybe like a cavern or something devoted to the processes in our real.
Yeah, they're all scenes. We do use NPCs quite a bit. I used NPCs in this one for several scenes. NPCs dining on sushi together. You all of a sudden just fly right into this little restaurant thing and look at them dining, and going, good, and yum, and the pleasure senses of eating and things like that.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, I can't wait. You got me all excited now. This is
good. Yeah,
this is a spark, isn't it?
Good. Oh, good. I'm glad it's your spark for today.
I must say, actually, though, I was just thinking when you said at the beginning there, I've got a mesh head somewhere, and of course I can scale it to a whole sim.
You can make a whole sim.
And I think downstairs here there's one that is scaled really big, and it's blended in with all my other sculpted rocks. And it's textured. I've textured it as a rock. So it's only when you're standing there looking at the rocks and the mountains that you realise one of them is actually a sculpted head, and it's not it's not obvious because it would just look like any mossy rock until you click. Hang on, there's a nose, and there's hang on,
it's a head.
Yeah, exactly. Funny things you can do like that. Yeah.
Well, whenever you want, I'm very happy to, especially if Saturdays are good for me, or even I'll take off a Sunday for you and show you, take you to the head.
Sunday is taken up by the show as a rule.
Plus the
past last hour, we also do Metaworld News before this show. So it's 2 shows in succession.
Yeah, you're busy.
But Saturdays is a good time. I'm sure. And maybe James would like to join us.
I'd love to, of course. And I'll invite Dale too, if he can come, because Dale, was the creator of once again, how to get us up through the head and, all the scripts that are there. So. Yeah, very good. Maybe
that would be okay. We'll keep in touch about that, and hopefully we'll make some film of it. So it won't be on this show, but it'll be on the channel. Yes. So that could be. I'm excited now. Right.
Okay, so good.
Next Saturday, maybe not, but whenever, one Saturday, that'd be good. And yeah, it'd be good to see Dale again for
Okay, yeah, he'd love that.
been a while. So we can't finish without asking about the future. We know what you've done.
What am I about to do?
What have you got planned, or is it all top secret?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. I think I'm allowed 20 worlds. I'm on the old grandfathered clause of, I came in so long ago in Kitely. So I think I was given 20 worlds. I have been given 20, and I've had 13, so I have 7 more worlds. So believe me, it does make me wonder what my next will be. We'll see. It'll probably be built again on a poem. Right now, I'm working on a movie with Natasha, so we kind of have to get that over with. And then I know I'm not afraid now to just stand on a green square and say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to begin. So we'll see. I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know, Mel, once it's up and ready.
Once the prim appears.
Yeah, exactly.
As they say.
What does it want to be? Exactly.
There is a wonderful. Now it's been ages since I'm in Second Life. I've got a copy in my inventory there. I think it was on Marketplace or something. A fascinating tool because you don't have NPCs in Second Life.
No.
Per se. But you still film and do quite a lot in Second Life. And there was, it's basically a kit, and you res it on the ground, and you can put people into it as kind of actors, and really heavily, you can set paths that their avatar will follow. So when you're like telling a story. Or whatever, you can, it's not an NPC doing it, it's a real avatar actor, but you can actually manipulate them across paths.
Yes.
Let's say you've got 2 avatars walking hand in hand down the street. Now, getting 2 real avatars to hold hands and walk down the street with them, make it look realistic, can be a problem. But this is like a kit where you can set all that up, and you've got your avatar sitting in, say, a director's chair, and is controlling actors who sit in the actor chairs, and you can actually do this with huge amounts of precision. So, and it's been said to be really good. Well, it is. I've seen it work for machinima.
I think they use that for guerrilla burlesque. And it gets the choreography when you're choreography, especially when you have lag and all these kind of things, and you have 10 people on stage that you want to, have move exactly to the right point and to the right mark, and and dance at the same time. Yeah, I do know that. I think Dale actually has that too. I think it does work on the same, the keyframe type of scripting process, where you can just set, just move people. We do things like that. Dale just makes. If we say, look, we need somebody walking down the street together from here to here, we just make these little movers, he calls them. We just jump on the ball, and then you can put any kind of animation that you want to be doing, running or dancing or just walking, and then just have the ball move from point A to point B, go to point C, go down to point D, and then, as you said, you're hands free. You don't have to worry about it. The actor is just on the ball and going where the camera needs to follow. So. Yeah, that's wonderful. Those are so helpful. And really, I'm not sure why. Why is it that you cannot use NPCs in Second Life? I feel that's too bad.
Yeah, I think it's to do with the the code variations. From where OpenSim departs from Second Life. I mean, they do have bots in Second Life. But they're kind of a bit different. I think they're sort of fake avatars that are logged into places or something.
True, that's right.
They I know Dayton used to do a lot of, they made systems where you could have a receptionist avatar in a building who artificially had a rather minimal conversation with you when anybody visited. And I know that was an artificial boss, as it were. There was no real person logged in being that avatar. It was all done from, it's an AI approach done on, it was a real avatar, but it was going to be being controlled in the back end on the web by code, not by a person. And, Yeah, I'm not. Well, you could actually ask why. I mean, it's really annoying. One of the first things I wanted in OpenSim here when I was building the studios was a copy of this device. I've forgotten the name now. For where I never explored it fully, but I played with it and I thought, oh wow, I've been able to do that. And but even if it was copyable and get outable, and from Linden Labs, which is nothing is, the chances are the script, it must be so heavily scripted it might not even work here anyway.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
NPCs, I think actually that Linden Labs had a reason for not wanting to allow NPCs. It may be avatar weight because they're not as heavy as a normal avatar, but they, if somebody fills up a region with NPCs, then, 3 NPCs are probably the same as having 1 avatar on the region. So you can imagine, somebody in Second Life being Second Life, they put 50 NPCs down and they'll log out and then be seen again. And this region will be, I don't know, I think there was a very specific reason Linden Labs didn't want them, and so then it's never been implemented.
Well, we've done some amazing dance scenes here on Kitely in OpenSim using the NPCs, and then doing them in a green screen, and then just bringing them into the streets of Second Life.
Yeah.
And wherever, and they're fabulous. They really, they're just wonderful. And I love the NPCs. It's so important. I think, as I said, you'll see them, well used in when you go to the head with us, up to the head, I should say.
Yeah.
It sounds strange.
Go up. Yes, go to the head. Start.
No, I didn't mean that.
Bring up.
When you travel up through the head.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always said that I mean it's just great for filming and machinima too, because there is so much you can do, especially if you're kind of directing a movie or something. But you can put on the costume and be the actor and make an NPC of yourself.
Exactly.
Then you can be every character in it and set up the NPCs, and you don't have to run around all your friends saying fancy being an actor for a few hours, and also knowing that they won't be able to do the job properly if they do come along. So it's a bit of a cheat, but if you're storytelling, which of course you are a lot, it's a very obvious way to go. You probably still want a few avatars around who are real actors who can really help you, but it's like free extras.
Oh, that's very true. But we're very lucky. At least Nat and I are lucky. We have like a repertory group of extras that they're so wonderful. All we have to say is, okay, we want to get you all together next Saturday, 12 o'clock, and we can get like 12 or 15 extras. Of course, the downside of that is that unless you're in a place you're filming that has very good FPS. It's going to bring it down too. So we do film. We have a film set in Second Life also up in the air, like about 3,000 meters, so that we can film 15 people in a scene together, and it's not going to be laggy. So important. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons the studio is 5,000 whatever it is up in the air, and we don't normally have an audience because we're focused on filming it.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, exactly.
People can watch it live now as well, so it doesn't matter. Most watch it in replay, but it's if we had an audience here, like a lot of the old Second Life programs did and things, every second week we'd be having a lag problem, or there'd be some problem with somebody in the audience, or you never know what's going to happen, So it's down to the function, If this was a conference, you'd want an audience, but when it's just like a panel discussion, who needs it?
That's true.
Well, except when they're on YouTube watching, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you're streaming it live on YouTube, and people that want to see it can, watch it, and that's wonderful. Yeah, I already told 2 of my friends that it was playing now, so they've been watching it, enjoying it. That's good.
Very good.
Yeah.
You're getting the feedback already.
Yeah, Dale's watching it. Yeah, he was so happy I mentioned it.
Hello, Dale. Long
Yeah,
time
say hi
no
to him. Yeah,
see.
he's watching. Yeah, he knows now that we're all going up through the head, through the big mesh head. Yes.
God, it sounds like a big mesh head in the sky.
Yes.
So it sounds like a song coming on. I think that's the
It
word.
could
Yeah.
be.
Oh dear.
Mm.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm what they call what was it Tyler called me earlier today? Wilting. That's it.
Yes.
I've decided the expression of the day is wilting. It's getting dark now, but the weather here is definitely wilting weather. But
Well, this has been so much fun for me, and I'm so happy that you invited me today, Mel, really,
great to
and
have you
James,
back.
really.
I'm
Yeah.
amazed it's been so long. Because I don't know, we've been more or less exclusive in OpenSim for about 2 years now.
Uh-huh.
We used to do once a month in Second Life for a while with Tara. And when you said the last time you were on the show we were in Second Life, I think, God, how long ago is that?
You know what it was? It was for the UWA when we were doing. We made a movie, and you liked the movie. Do you remember the movie that we made for about transcending borders? And you were very. That's when you invited me onto the show. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Second Life.
Well, it seems like yesterday, and it's all it's back in the century of Second Life.
Yes, imagine. Yeah, back in those days. Yeah, years ago. Anyway, it's been such a pleasure, and I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to get you to visit my 13 Sims, little by little, until you see them all.
Saturdays are good. Even
good.
even next Saturday, just grab me on Skype
and next Saturday we have a big film shoot, one of those big 15 extras next Saturday. But after that, I think that I will definitely try to coordinate with you, Mel.
Yeah, with enough notice, try and set it up for filming and stuff too. While we're doing, some elementary form of filming while we're doing it.
Okay.
Would love to see them. Yeah.
It's never been filmed. I would love that if James would come out. It's never been filmed, so this would be kind of fun to see how it films.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Good. Good. Well, thank you again, and wish you all the best, and just OpenSim, may it grow and grow. Just thrive organically.
And may our large pools of collected material forever expand.
Yes, exactly. That's it.
Oh, the utilities, I mean. Okay. Yeah, I just every time I do pop back into Second Life, I'm astonished at the size of my inventory. But actually, recently I've been looking at my inventories in OpenSim, and actually, they're almost as big, despite there aren't any lavish, places to go and buy stuff here. So it's amazing. Okay, well, it has been wonderful having you back, and
thank you, Mel.
I'll make sure. We'll meet up before anyway for this, but I'll make sure I get you back here before long. Certainly before.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe before we've disappeared to another platform.
Okay, thank you.
And
good to see you again, James, too. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And thanks to James, of course, for multitasking all the cameras as ever. Thank you, James.
Oh, absolutely, Mel. I enjoyed it much.
Yeah. And I guess thank you to me for coping with it all. We will be returning same time, same place next week, I guess. You can always watch this as many times as you want, free playing on YouTube. Just check out Malburn's channel there, which is probably the easiest way now. Or you can go to the video page on the Great Canadian Grid website, where you can basically choose from all our. It's a nice little embed. It works very well. And that's it, I think. So I'm going to do my usual stint of wishing you all a very good morning, or a very good afternoon, or a very good evening, and indeed possibly a good tomorrow, especially if you're in Australia. So wherever and indeed whenever you are, and we'll be back soon. So bye for now.